Hey, everybody. We're on here. Now, as I scramble to find where I have my thing open at so I can pause it.
I just paused mine.
Woohoo! I got there just in time.
But my chat button just disappeared. That was weird. How did that? There it go. It like I had it up and then it. Can you send me that link again?
You need it again?
Yeah, can you? It like disappeared.
Did you hold chat box?
Oh, you know what? Never mind. I got it. Disregard. I'm here.
Okay.
All good.
Gotta help the domestic folk.
That's right. Soon to be international.
I saw that. Do you want to talk about that a little bit on their life part?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
I hate that you can hear my typing. I'm really not typing that loud.
Like crazy teenagers, I could talk about 8 hours worth for.
All right, let's get this show on the road. After I hit this button. Flying Life Podcast, episode 28, recorded November 10th, 2017. Welcome to Flying Life Podcast, a podcast about just that, flying, aviation, and my life. I'm Dispatcher Mike, a dispatcher for a major airline based here in the United States. Joining me again on this episode is Dispatcher Greg, another dispatcher from a different major airline, also based in the United States. Greg, welcome back to the Flying Life Podcast.
Hello, Dispatch Mike and everybody. Thanks again. Nice to see you again. Glad to be
So,
on.
what's been going on? You're sporting the Cubs hat.
Oh, my
Been a good
Cubs.
time.
My Cubs.
Be a
My
Cubby
Cubs.
fan.
I was bummed out today. You know, we were supposed to have game 4 against the Nationals, and Mother Nature had other plans and decided to rain out here in Chicago. And I don't know. It could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. I'm looking more towards like tomorrow. You know, we still have. They're not pitching the race tomorrow, so maybe we can squeak it out and clinch the division series tomorrow.
Yeah, maybe that. Maybe just it could be another good day, another day rest for everybody, and things like that. So
Yeah. Well, I know this isn't a sports test, but it was funny if you listen to Dusty Baker today and his talk show or his briefing. He goes, most of his players were sick. They weren't feeling good, and they were out of sync today. So it's a good thing that we got rained out today. Okay, So when they lose tomorrow, that'll be his excuse that they just
there's the Dusty excuse. All right. So moving on from sports, in this episode, we're going to go a little bit about news, some recap of Delta Airlines racing a hurricane, an Air France A380 engine blew its parts all over Greenland, the C Series tariff, and how general aviation airplanes are working for hurricane relief. And then for the main topic, Dispatcher Greg went to the ADF conference last week in Dallas, the ADF summit, I think they call it. So we'll be talking about what he learned at the summit down there in Dallas, and we'll talk about the party that Southwest flew or threw. They didn't fly one; they threw one.
Big
And
old
then
party.
we'll talk about a little bit about life, and that'll be a show. So, without any further ado, let's move on to the news. So our first story dates way back to September 6th, and it's this is from the USA Today. It shows a Delta flight races Hurricane Irma to Puerto Rico and back and wins. Well, Greg, what was your first thoughts on this story?
Pure media hype. Thought it must have been a quiet news day. So
I don't even think it's pure media hype. I think it's just one quote unquote av geek who has a lot of followers and a blue check mark next to his name who really doesn't understand airline operations.
nope, apparently he doesn't. This
And
kind of stuff happens day in. I don't want to say day in and day out, but it's kind of routine in some respects.
I mean, it's perfectly. I mean, the system worked perfectly in this case. You and I both work in offices. My office has 27 different departments now in it, and that goes from airport customer service, dispatch, meteorology, the operations control guys like and me in the ops management group. You got ATC folks. I mean, you got a whole bunch of people that came together, knew this flight could happen. Everyone made correct decisions and made sure that everyone was going to be where they were going to be in place and make sure this flight would still work out. And the people, at least my airlines, people in San Juan, they can just absolutely turn an airplane on a dime no matter what. They bust hard and they get the job done and they get the flight out. That's what they do. So to me this just shows that it wins. Going through the story, a remark from Delta showed the flight landed at 12:01 p.m. with light rain, with 9 miles of visibility, with wind gusts up to 31 knots, which for San Juan isn't that bad. I mean, it's always windy in San Juan. You got the trade winds blowing across. It's always gusting 25, 35 knots. So it's really not that big of a deal. And it's all within the operating aircraft of that they flew down there.
Right.
So
it's all within the specs. So really, from a operational standpoint, different than a windy day, maybe, right? I mean, it's, yeah, you got some strong winds and some rain and a big thing called a hurricane surrounding there, but dispatchers, everybody ensures that the flight is being operated safely. You got ops managers or dispatchers, and you're all collaborating together, and if you didn't feel it was safe, it wouldn't have gone.
Yeah. I mean, what it is.
Right. I mean, and even during these hurricanes that we had, there was a lot of media posts out there with people posting pictures that all the airlines are flying into a hurricane. Well, we're not flying into the hurricanes, and mostly hurricanes are kind of low tops, relatively speaking. I mean, they're 25, 30,000 foot tops. Yeah, you got some wind shear. Yeah, you got some thunder activity. But for the most part, you could fly right on top of those hurricanes at 35, 36,000 feet, have no turbulence at all. So from a safety standpoint, yeah, it's nothing to be totally concerned about. Now, if you lose an engine or something like that, you have to do rapid depressurization. Yeah, you might have an issue there flying over a hurricane, but for the most part, it's a pretty safe and sound type.
I know from my oceanic days, we always went around them. I used to work the Africa desk, flights from Joburg back to the States, and Accra, Lagos, back to the States. And anytime there was a hurricane that's moved off and started marching its way on the trade winds over towards this side of the world, we just avoided them. We never
Yeah,
went over them.
you
But
should.
I mean, this isn't really no different than racing a line of thunderstorms moving across the Midwest in the spring.
Right.
You're still gonna send the flight there. Oh my gosh, there's a line of thunderstorms. I mean, it's basically what this was. It was an outer band. It was a line of thunderstorms, and it just happened to have a name. It was called Irma.
Yeah,
Until the Weather Channel goes and starts naming all the summer line of thunderstorms like they do with the winter storms. I mean, no big deal.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't fully read the entire article, but from what I did read of it and heard about it, through rumors and or speculate from other people, it just seemed like it was kind of a ridiculous article. Just like you said, it's nothing different than a spring storm. You're trying to get in, you're trying to get out, and go. That's all it was. With a name. With a name.
Yeah, it's a big thing.
A storm with a name.
All right, so moving on to the next story. Air France had an A380 with I think if I count right, the number 4 engine. It literally just blew apart, lost a fan, the cowling, and everything. Let's scroll back to the top here. This was Air France flight 66, and this was on October 1st, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll go with October 1st.
Yep, October 1st.
No one was injured on Sunday when Air France flight 66 diverted to Labrador. They diverted to Goose Bay, one of my favorite E-Tops station. Nothing better than a Goose Cap Shannon for your E-Tops alternates. We'll get into that a little bit later, a few episodes after Greg learns about E-Tops. This is the third time where an A380's just blown its engine parts all over. Back in with the Qantas flight, that was where'd it go? It was somewhere in the article. There was a Rolls-Royce engine with the QF flight that lost an engine. That jet was out of service for 18 months, according to this article. Another funny thing that I see in this article, it says that they're going to put a spare engine on the airplane, but it's only there to balance out the wings. I'm pretty sure it's going to suck some fuel and blow some thrust out the back.
Did they put the duct tape and the speed tape on it too, just so it doesn't? Oh dear.
I mean, we've in my airline before. We've done it now. Somewhat recently. Qantas did it about a year ago. We don't do it anymore in my airline, but 747s have mounts for a fifth engine pod, where you could put an engine up there, block it out, and you add a whole bunch of fuel burn, but they're designed to carry an extra engine. And Qantas did that about a year and a half ago when they needed to get a spare engine over to South America, and that was the fastest way they can get an engine there. So they did it, and it kind of made the news. There's really no big deal. It's airplanes designed that way. There's literally the mounts sitting underneath the wing to go out there and just literally bolt another engine on, and away they go.
Yeah, I mean, as long as everything's balanced and you got everything good, yeah, I suppose it'll work.
Yeah. So
I found that interesting. I actually, not being international qualified yet, I don't hear a lot of these ETOPS like diversions and stuff like that, at least for the airline that I'm at. And just funny reading that and hearing about the whole putting a part on there just to balance it out. That's interesting.
Yeah. ETOPS diversions with engine failures are the easiest diversions for a dispatcher to handle on the getting their side. Like we've had it before where a crew literally just sends a one-line ACARS message. It's a text message that the pilots can send down to us dispatchers. It said, lost right engine, diverting lodges. And the dispatchers just replied back, copy that, sent them the next METAR, and we'll let them know that you're on the way. And that was it. It's all the crew and the dispatcher talked about. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in the background afterwards that the dispatcher had to do, but that was only the communication between the pilot and the dispatcher. I mean, because they made that plan before they left. They said, if we lose an engine here, we're going to go here.
Right. They know where to go. It's all planned out.
Yeah, it's easiest thing to do. It's greatest thing. Not great for the passengers or the operation, but it's a very easy diversion to handle from the, hey, let's divert here aspect.
Yeah, something to look forward to.
It's the recovery.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, from your job aspect, trying to get that plane out, is, I'm sure, a challenge.
Yeah, it's the rescue flight. Where is it coming from? Where are we going to get these people to? And all that comes up with those. Speaking of, I don't think this article talked about it, but I read another one that did. Of the 497 passengers, they sent another 777 of Air France in another 737 that went and recovered the passengers. So that's where they finally got the people to where they're going.
A 737 or something like that?
Yeah, it was a 777 and another 73 from some other airline I've never heard of before.
Yeah, that'll get everybody, I guess. All about the seats, so
yeah,
it's cheaper than sending another 80 or A380 up there, right?
Well, it's that, and do they have a spare A380 around?
Well, that's just it too.
That's the big thing. I mean, you could easily send another A380 or another like aircraft if you have one laying around.
Right.
All right. The next story is from the Wichita Eagle, and you think, why the Wichita Eagle? But Wichita and Kansas is a very big aviation market with Cessna and the whole Cessna Textron area. So this is we have a huge aviation part in this newspaper. And it says Bombardier is hopeful about the final C-Series jet trade ruling. And go ahead and read this. And says a Bombardier official says the company is optimistic about the final outcome of the preliminary ruling on a trade complaint against Bombardier and its C-Series passenger jet program. The Federal Commerce Department issued a preliminary ruling in favor of Boeing's complaint to the International Trade Administration that Bombardier is, quote, dumping, selling its new narrow-body passenger jet below the cost of manufacturing in the United States. So the proposed tariff was 219.63%. That's a big tax.
I was floored when I saw that. 219%. That's crazy.
Yeah, and this whole thing comes on Delta ordered 50 or 75 firm C-Series CS100s and an option for 50 more. Those deliveries supposed to start in early 2018, but man, if this ruling comes through, I mean that's going to be a big wrinkle for those people over there down in Atlanta at Delta.
Yeah, I would agree. That's pretty hefty. Wow. I'm just reading the article here while you're reading it. Like, 19%.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have it. I don't have it up, but Delta said in a statement that their argument is that Boeing doesn't sell or build a comparable jet. I mean, this is a 100-seat airplane, and Boeing doesn't sell anything that small. I mean, the closest they got is the 737-700,
Yeah.
and those are, I think off the top of my head, 125, 130, somewhere in there. So
this is. Oh, go ahead. I was going to say, this is a Boeing versus C series. But I mean, I'm kind of just reading it here.
Yeah, this is a Boeing complaint against Bombardier. So this is a Boeing versus Bombardier, and the C series is a 100 to 110 seat airplane that is single aisle, 2 and 2 in first class, and 2 and 3 in the main cabin, much similar to an MD-88 or MD-80, MD-90. So similar configuration to that. A ton of range possible on them as well. So it's been flying for about a year, flying over in the UK for Swiss, not the UK, but Europe for Swiss Air. And the airplane went on a proving flight to get it over there. The Bombardier actually flew it from Wichita to Keflavik nonstop. So, you got anything else to add?
No, I mean, I just skimming through. I thought that was interesting. Yeah, it's all politics, all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah, it's completely what it is.
Yeah, political fights.
And finally, the last story is it's from the AOPA. Behind the scenes of a grassroots success, the Operation Airdrop. Operation Airdrop started August 29th between pilots Doug Jackson and J. Clay Wolf, also a Dallas-Fort Worth radio personality, while Jackson and his friend drove from Rockport, Texas, back to their homes in Decatur after delivering a trailer full of supplies to South Texas area that was hit hard by Hurricane Harvey. This organization is basically a grassroots effort of people with airplanes and flying relief supplies to where they're needed. And they got so good to the point where a pilot would register his airplane, register how much he would weigh, and they would tell him where to go pick up supplies. And they have individual pallets with their tail number, and they would be picking up supplies. Would be about a 10-minute turn where they have a whole bunch of people to put the weight in and fuel them up. Away they go, and they go and deliver the goods to where they needed to be right away. And it worked so well for Harvey that it's now a pretty much standalone on-call not-for-profit organization.
And they're doing this with Cessna 421s, I'm saying, right?
It's any airplane that you have.
Oh, wow. Okay, so okay.
It's literally they went from, I think there's some dude that volunteered as Piper Cub all the way through the large aircraft. So it's not just, I could do it with my Musketeer, except for me and my Musketeer, it'll only be able to, carry about 200, maybe 300 pounds worth of supplies, but that's still 300 pounds worth of supplies,
Wow,
getting
that's cool. That's
directly
really
to
nice.
where they need to go.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, and it really helps out the people that need it, and the nonprofit. They're not, making anything off of it. That's really nice that people are doing that. That it's approved and all that. Huh.
Yeah, and
Airdrop.
on the recovery side, they they partnered with non-government organizations and churches and things like that to get the goods to where they needed to be quickly. So it's not like it was just your stuff's here, it's going to sit in a warehouse.
Yeah.
It literally, but some of these pilots were dropping off the goods, and they were in pickup trucks and leaving the airport within like 5 to 10 minutes.
Well, I'm just reading here, and this I find cool. It says that the timing on this would make any NASCAR pit crew proud of the fastest airplane. So the unload time, they said it was 20 seconds, with the average unload time was within 7 minutes. Supplies were sorted and left the airport within 40 minutes of arrival. That's fast. They made it.
It's fast, and
4
it got to
hours.
the point where it got the government's attention, and it's now another tool for FEMA and the U.S. government to use in disaster relief.
Yeah, no, that's great. Now, this was with Harvey. Are they doing this with, well, I guess what was the one that went over San Juan? Was that Maria?
Yeah, so it started with Harvey when they had the idea, and they from there they transferred and flew stuff for Irma, and they are, it's not as a big operation for Maria down to Puerto Rico, mainly because the little airplanes can't make it that far.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, for me, it's a 1,400-mile flight to San Juan from where I am. Yeah. So we're not doing that nonstop.
No.
And then you get into the things where you have to, the overwater equipment. Okay, well, you kind of get down there, island hopping over the Bahamas, but we're gonna have to stop with gas. So now I have to register to land in the Bahamas, and so for the Maria effort, they're focusing more on large airplanes that can make it nonstop full of goods.
That's really nice. I'm glad that something like that is around. And I mean, the major carriers are sending supplies down to all the places like San Juan and in Texas when we had Harvey and all that. And but as you know, it took a while to plan it, get it out there, and then when you did get it out there, you needed people there to unload it. It took a day to plan the whole thing, to try to get it out there, and then get it out back. So yeah, if you have an operation like this is great that they have something like that.
Yeah, it's a thing of beauty.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. That's pretty cool. Right.
All right, that's gonna wrap up the news. I just had a quick panic thing that I wasn't recording. All right, so let's move up the news. Let's go ahead and move on to the topic in the ADF. Alright, so last week, right? Yeah, last week there was a summit, ADF, American Dispatch Federation.
Airline Dispatch Federation.
Airline Dispatch Federation.
Yes.
ADF. It's basically the big lobby group for dispatchers. I think most of the major airlines pay for their dispatchers, or their unions pay for their dispatchers to be part of the ADF. So no cost to us, but anyone can be a member of ADF. You can go to dispatcher.org, become a member. There's job boards, and it's a good overall conversation that continually happens over there at dispatcher.org. I've been to an ADF conference before. It was a couple of years ago in Vegas. It was a good time. I think it was 2 years ago in Vegas I went, maybe 3. So talk to us. Was this your first summit?
Yes, this was my first summit. It was the one that popped my cherry. I actually had to throw that out there. Yeah, no, it was my first time. So I've been dispatching for about 3.5 years now, and a bunch of buddies at work are like, you got to go to this thing. It's sure all the updates for the industry, and it's a good time. And Southwest is hosting it this year, so they're big partiers at Southwest. I'm like, okay, cool. So this year it was hosted in Dallas, Texas, right near their headquarters, near Love Field. So it was a 3-day, well, really 2-day event. First night is a meet and greet. All the vendors are there. We had Jeppesen there and Sabre and all the different AvGeek type stuff that you would expect there. And that was cool, getting to know the people out there. Free alcohol. That was one of the best things. You go there, open bar, sponsored by the vendors are the ones who pay for the open bar and all that. So good times, drinks, meeting people. The second day is really where you get into the meat of the things. And there was a lot of cool discussions that went around on, let's see, so that would have been last Tuesday. It was Monday through Wednesday. So last Tuesday, so the opening, I'm just going to kind of go over some of the things. So the opening presentation, we had 4 senior VPs, one from each major legacy carrier, that were at the presentation. And they were the senior VP of network operations. So, United, American, Delta, and Southwest. And there was a good discussion among the VPs, mostly about like on time, how are you improving your on time, cancellations, I think everyone among the industry is improving, and delays and cancellations are down way more than they were from years ago. Everyone's more focused on getting the flights out on time. There is some inconsistencies between D0 and A14. I think at United, they focus more on D0, whereas I think it was American, they're more focused on the A14. And I think at Delta, they're trying a different metric that they said they were going to start at the beginning of the new year, which had something to do with the hybrid, where they still want to get a D0, but not so much on the A14, more like an A0. I wasn't quite sure on where they were going with that.
Delta wants to get them all.
D0 and
completion factor D0 and A14. They want them all. They want to be all on time, all to operate, no matter what.
Yeah.
They're so far ahead of everyone else. They make the rest of us look silly.
They do, and it was a good old time. And it's funny because you have the Southwest, and they're kind of in the middle. They like, yeah, we care, but it's a different airline. Let's put it that way. It's a good airline. Much more customer focused and not as stringent on D0, I think, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just looking at the going through and looking at the Dispatch Federation, their panel. So you have Dave Holtz from Delta, Lauren Cass from American. Who's your guys' guy there?
United had Tracy Lee, and Southwest had Matt Hefner.
Okay. So
all 4 of them were up on a panel, and there were some good questions. One of the interesting questions, though, that came up, and it's a good discussion within the industry, is fuel policy. Because I know at the airline I work for, fuel is something that it's important with it for every airline within the industry. But what I found interesting is how each carrier has a different philosophy on fuel and how extra fuel should be managed, or whether you should be boarding extra fuel. And it kind of goes, United is kind of on the left, Delta might be more on the right, and then Southwest is kind of
well, for me, it's always the thing. There's the written fuel policy. There's the fuel policy that's in the manual.
Right.
This is our fuel policy. This is what's going to be done. This is how we're going to do it. But does that fuel policy actually transmit itself onto a release? And that's the big thing.
Correct. And so for those who don't know what fuel policy, this is a quick example. So fuel required domestically, you need fuel to your destination, right? You need your required fuel is fuel to your destination, 45 minutes FAR fuel, any alternate fuel, and taxi fuel. And taxi fuel is burnable, obviously, but the required fuel is any required fuel, burn, alternate, and required fuel. And then that's your...
Right.
Anything above that is extra.
Yeah, and if the alternate's required, because you don't always have to have an alternate. If the weather forecast at your destination is good enough, basically between an hour before and after the ceiling is above 2,000 feet or above 3 statute miles visibility, you don't need an alternate.
Right. Exactly. So you're right. There's the policy fuel that you have written in your dispatch manual, and then there's reality. So I have to say, the airline that I work for, usually it's an hour of remaining fuel, extra fuel. That's your fuel policy, unless you feel as a dispatcher that you need to add more, or if the pilot wants more. So it's always this game of, okay, you plan the flight appropriately, is how I would plan it. And if the captain likes it, they'll sign it. If not, they'll call you and say, hey, I want more gas, which is cool. We never question them. We always give them more gas if they want it. And every year, we have a meeting with our managers, and they tell you, okay, this is how much extra fuel you've put on all your flights on average in minutes. You put on an extra 15 minutes. And here's where your peers are. So it's kind of like, it's not punitive, it's not discipline. It's more of a, hey, this is what you're doing. So when I say that it's different among the carriers, at least on how the presentation was there, United was kind of like, this is our policy. This is what we want. This is how it is. Delta was a completely different response on how their fuel policy is. And it was more like, he doesn't care about fuel policy. As long as you're putting enough fuel on the plane to get it to where it's going, then that's what you're doing. And that's okay. And it's just a different, I think, in cultures on how one airline says, this is what we want, another airline says this, and it's funny, how you have the difference between the two. And then you got the other two, American and Southwest, are kind of like in the middle. We care, but we're not like stingent on it.
The regional I used to work for, very short time, I was very lucky. They literally every day posted on the bulletin board in the office the dispatcher's total fuel overage. It was like we called it fantasy dispatch. It was, and the top two people got gift cards at the end of the month, like $30 to Starbucks.
Really?
Yeah, it was
Well,
insane.
see, that's actually kind of scary though, because then you're incentivizing like, okay, don't put extra fuel, and we're going to reward you for doing that. You know, that's to me that's more of a safety issue. Or giving.
One of the airlines, one of the major airlines has their fuel is connected to their pay.
Oh,
And it's one of those things, they don't carry a lot of fuel because if they meet the corporate goals, the dispatchers get more money. And you'll
that's
see when thunderstorms hit their hubs how quickly they scatter.
yeah, yeah. I see. I don't agree with that. I feel as a dispatcher, I should. It's my license. It's the captain's license. We both agree on a number, and I don't think that anyone should question you on your fuel. I mean, obviously, you're not going to bump payload just because you want to by putting extra fuel. But if you got thunderstorms en route, or you go to an airport where it's a busy hub, you're gonna put extra gas on there. I'm just gonna do it because, from my experience, I know how much they're gonna burn.
Yeah.
And
so we got a question from the chat room. Captain Jeff from the Airline Pilot Guys watching us live. He's got a question. Let's go and do this. What do you do when a captain calls and asks for more fuel? Do you push back at him at all?
I tell him absolutely no. We're out of money. No. No. I mean, I no questions asked. They'll call me and say, "Hey, I want another 2,000 pounds." Done. My only question to them is, do you want me to amend your current release, or do you want a new one? If it's over 2,000 pounds, I'm required to give you a new release. If you want to keep it on the current release, we're done. Time and initials. Go. Have a good day.
Yeah. For me, when I was actually working flights, I was pretty much the same way. It was one of those, I always found myself near the unhappy at turnover by my relief because I never put a lot of fuel on. To me, honestly, I think it goes to my flying background where I understand what's going to happen. I know that a flight going into Raleigh-Durham doesn't need 30 minutes of extra fuel. You don't need it. Even if you have some sort of pressurization issue and you have to, like, say you lose a pack on an airplane, you have to, like, drop down to 25,000 feet on some airplanes. Well, 15 minutes of fuel in our flight planning system is calculated at 10,000 feet. Well, there's a big fuel difference in things in that at the different altitude. So kind of understand that. And also when you go with less fuel, you as a dispatcher have to be way more aware of your desk. Sometimes I see that dispatchers put on more fuel so they don't have to work as hard.
Bingo.
Because now when something happened, oh, don't worry, we got 25 minutes of gas. Let's just hang out for a second.
Bingo.
Suppose if you got 15 minutes of gas, which at my company, 15 minutes is our FOM minimum. We can't go below 15 minutes. So you got 15 minutes extra at gas. I remember there's one day I was working the Atlanta to the Tobacco Road, like Atlanta, Raleigh, Durham, Atlanta, Charlotte, Atlanta, Richmond, and there was an earthquake. It was beautiful VFR day. I'm carrying 15 minutes of fuel back and forth, no problems. Earthquake happens, tower evacuates. Crew sends me an ACARS. Hey, towers evacuate, airport's closed. Where do you want us to go? Greensboro. See if they're open. If they're not open, go here or here. You all have the gas, but let's get on the ground, cut our losses.
Yep.
To me, when you go low on the gas, you have to expect diversions because things do happen. So I bet that would have been a very interesting conversation amongst all of them.
Yeah, it was.
The fact you get the 4 VPs all to show up at the same time, that they believe in the ADF, and those guys talk to each other all the time anyway, because it's the airline industry, it's the aviation industry. We share information with each other. I mean, every recurrent class they talked about fuel with me. They had the American matrix, the United matrix, the Delta matrix, the Southwest matrix, the JetBlue matrix, all of them. Look, here's our fuel numbers. Here's
Yep.
where we are, guys. Here's where our peers are. You guys really need to think about carrying less gas.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Every year at Recurrence, they have a one of the standards. People come in and talk about the fuel, and it's funny because pilots will, when they look at the extra fuel, dispatchers tend to blame the pilots tend to blame the dispatchers as to why there's extra fuel. It's a cat and mouse game, but at the end of the day, as long as we're finding it safe, who cares how much fuel you're putting on? But I do have a funny story. So the other day I was working. It was one of those stories. Chicago, Milwaukee. What is that? A 20-minute flight? I don't even know if it's that long. You go up. You're up for 12,000. I don't even know if you go 12,000 feet. Anyway,
I doubt it.
I doubt it too. So I planned it with 20 extra minutes. VFR, not a PIREP out there. Beautiful day.
It's basically your burn there. You doubled your burn in extra fuel.
Right, basically. So pilot calls me. He goes, I want an extra 20 minutes of fuel. So that would have been an extra 2,500 pounds. So total extra fuel would have been about 35 minutes, I believe. Or 40 minutes total extra. So it was landing with like an hour and 30 minutes of gas. And that was one of those questions I had to ask. Because Chicago to Milwaukee, I mean, even if you could drive there in 20 minutes. I said to him, Captain, why? I mean, is there something I'm missing here? I mean, I know you're asking for some extra. He goes, well, I want some flexibility. Okay. So I just kind of left it at that. Okay, sure, I'll get it for you. But I'm thinking in the back of my head, what kind of flexibility do you need from Chicago to Milwaukee on a VFR day? You're taking off to the east. You're basically making a left-hand turn and landing in Milwaukee, basically.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And say a GA airplane sprawls parts all over the runway. You're only 15 minutes to Madison.
Exactly. I mean, it just baffled me. And then I went to our fuel people because they're always blaming it on us and saying, hey, you're putting all this extra fuel on. I'm like, well, look at this example. I mean, that's a unique one, but it's just funny. It's just funny,
I had the same thing when I was dispatching. It was one of those, most of the time it was like, yeah, sure, no problem. Yep, more gas, no problem. No deals. But sometimes like, I want an extra 4,000 pounds. And it's the same thing. Exact line you used. Are you seeing something that I missed? What are you seeing that I'm not? What's different? And sometimes you can talk them out of it. You're like, actually this and this. It's actually not what's happening. This is what's happening.
Yeah.
Or ones that I love is the last week Tuesday when I went in there, we held. What was the weather like? Thunderstorms. Surge VFR. But I don't care. Last week Tuesday we held.
Yeah. That's always a good one. 2 years ago on this date, I held for 30 minutes. I went up to that. It's one of those things that I don't think is ever going to be solved. You're always going to have the fuel people, and you're always going to. But at the end of the day, as long as you're doing your job and planning it properly, and you're both comfortable, that's the important thing. So, but it was a good discussion.
Hot topic, because 3 years ago, fuel was the #1 cost for an airline.
Yep.
Since then, the fuel prices come down, but they can be back up there like that. Cool. Fuel is the number 2 cost at almost every single airline. Yeah. I think when they talk about how much fuel we burn and consume it just at our major hub in a day, it'll make people throw up. We just literally just burn baby dinosaurs out the back of our tailpipes. That's all we do.
Yeah. It's a huge expense, but it's gone down, and again, it'll go up again one day, and then the airlines will, say, hey, we need to pipe down again. The cycle.
Yeah. It's another reason why I think we always measure things in pounds. Obviously, weight-wise, it gets bordered in pounds and makes sense. But I think we actually saw how many gallons of fuel we were putting on a flight. Like, what do you mean I'm putting 3,000 gallons? Ah! All right, so what was the conversation? What else did you take away? What else you want to take away from your list here?
The that was really the big thing with the VPs. I mean, like I said, we went over on time statistics and hiring dispatchers within the other airlines. It sounds like almost all of the legacy carriers are going to be hiring dispatchers because of the increased flying, and they're taking away a lot of the express type stuff. So
my office is extremely old as well.
Yeah. So
like almost half of our workforce is over the age of 55.
Also, you'll see a lot of retirements in the next, Well, see, there's no age retirement list for our job, so
Yeah.
Go 80, 90 years old. Huh?
I wish there was.
Yeah, well, I mean,
our oldest guy's in his 80s.
Yeah. At some point, it's like, okay, retire already so I can get your line. I don't want to be on relief for the rest of my life. Yeah, and then they went over hurricanes and how the operations plans on. So that was kind of the VP thing. That was kind of cool. The fuel was kind of the big thing there. One of the other conversations that I thought was pretty good was he was a retired Delta dispatcher, Steve Casey.
Steve Case.
Case, yes, he's a very good presenter.
He's a genius.
Yeah, it seems like he really knew his stuff. He kind of talked about the topic was the aircraft dispatcher yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And he kind of went back about 100 years ago, not 100 years ago, but when dispatchers first came around, and how everyone thought that the role of the dispatcher was going to be gone in the 70s when deregulation came out, or when they regulated the industry. And then, when computers first came out in the 80s, they were like, oh, we don't need dispatchers anymore. So today, obviously the industry is changing with technology, right? They're talking about, eventually, who knows if it'll ever happen, but single pilots in the cockpit, or I can't ever see this happening, but pilotless planes, drones flying airplanes and that kind of thing. Yeah, I just don't see that happening. But, it's something that NASA is testing. They supposedly have airplanes out there now that could fly without pilots. There's a guy who's controlling airplanes like through a joystick, and that's how they're doing it. So, from the role of a dispatch profession, he made a point to say, like, this job is never guaranteed. We thought in the 90s that this job was going to go away. When, I forgot what he said, came up, there were lobbyists out there that were trying to get rid of the role of the dispatcher, and the only thing that kept the dispatcher role was the ADF actually was able to prove that certain airplane incidents were prevented because of the dispatcher. So they went to court, and they actually won the case, obviously, because we're still dispatching today. But the key takeaway from that was we need to keep advocating for our role as dispatchers because, with automation coming out there and potential drones and all that, you never know what the future is going to be, and we need to prove in our job that it's there.
Even with the enhanced technology that's going into the flight deck, I mean, our pilots now have a weather viewer, and they have a turbulence readout using the EDR data. And on their iPads, they get updated EDR data, which is eddy disturbance rate. It's an actual box that's installed on some airplanes, and it data links down when the box shakes. And unlike other traditional turbulence reports, light chop, there's one airline that always calls light chop, moderate, severe. They have literally different ranges, set technical ranges of vibration within the box.
Yeah.
That sends down, that brings the EDR down. It's a great tool, absolutely amazing tool. But now our pilots have that right on their tablet over here. Why do they need to ask me what the ride's like?
Right.
They can
Exactly.
see
And
it.
we have the same thing. Oh, yeah. And in fact, they've even gone a step further now in our. It'll automatically send to their ACARs when there's a PIREP or something that, or moderate or greater PIREP in the vicinity within 20 miles. It'll automatically shoot that PIREP up to their flight, up to the ACAR system, so they get it right there in front of them. Or if they're going into a SIGMET area, it'll automatically send them a copy of the SIGMET with the the fixes and all the stuff on there. So slowly they're taking stuff away from the role and automating that. But I don't know. I always think you're going to have operational control needs. You're always going to have somebody to say, hey, this is safe or this is not safe. You can't automate. I know you have zeros and ones, it's binary, either zero or not, but you still need someone to sit in the chair and say, yeah, you know what, legally it might be safe, but is it smart to operate the flight?
I think ADF, what really needs to happen is to counteract this and get the pilot group on our side is how many times a shift does a dispatcher get a different airplane or make a decision 2-3 hours before the pilot's still at home showering, the dispatcher's already looking at the flight and don't like something they see already with the flight, either with a MEL for maintenance or equipment or airport condition or something, that we are already proactively getting something changed to make it a safer operation. I mean, oh look, we got an auto spoiler in op and auto brakes are in op. We're going to LaGuardia and it's snowing. Let's get a different airplane, opposed to waiting for the flight crew to show up and say, yeah, I'm not taking that.
Right. Right. So,
So
you got to be proactive on that. So I thought that was an interesting discussion. And really the last big thing was a presentation by a dispatcher from Southwest Airlines. His name's Jake Zauman. He did a documentary on 9/11. It's a 55-minute video, and what he did was took all the dispatchers that were responsible for those flights on that day, and he got them and interviewed them. And the American, I think it was one American dispatcher, I don't know what her name was, but then the two United dispatchers, and it was a very, very powerful video. I don't think there was a dry eye in the room. I mean, the detail that these dispatchers went through on that day, and then the famous ACARs that one of the United dispatchers sent out was, I have a picture of it somewhere if I can send it, but basically to the extent of like, secure your cockpit and, take action now. And that was kind of like, they sent that to all the pilots, and it was so interesting and dark and sad to hear their stories of that day.
I'm friends with Jake on Facebook, and he's kind of been always teasing for the last year clips from his video and all that, with interviews with Gene Kim and like the lady from American, I forgot her name, but she's very well done. He's teasing these clips, teasing them, and this video we were talking about is going to get published online, and when it does, Jake has agreed to come on the show and talk about it, because I want to promote the heck out of this video, and I want to get him over, do something maybe for the Airline Pilot Guy show, do something, make sure that Max and David and the other Max and Rob over at Airplane Geeks, make sure they know about it so they can talk to him about it. But I'm like, the one thing I'm really disappointed that I couldn't go to ADF about was that video. I literally would have gone to Dallas just for that video, yeah. And that's it.
Totally worth it seeing that. I hope it is online soon, just so people can really get a good photographs. I think somebody was like, "Hey, can you get it on Netflix or something like that?" Just so, I mean, the vast
Posted
majority.
an update today. Basically all he's waiting for is the letter back from the copyright office saying that it's copyrighted.
Oh, okay, good.
Which is smart move on his point. I mean, you need to. A work like that needs to be copyrighted.
Yeah.
And Jake, speaking of him, he was also the 2017 Visionary Award winner this year, which is a award that ADF gives out for people who are basically visions in the industry and go above and beyond to promote the dispatch profession. And past winners are just dispatch legends as it is. Gene Kim, who I think is with Southwest now, former United guy. Steve Case, former Delta guy, he just retired. Giles O'Keefe, former Northwest guy, he does some contract work and stuff that now too. And now Jake, I mean, mainly you got to say for this video because it truly promotes the dispatch profession from a big time event.
Yeah.
So
that's really the highlights of the the kind of ended on the 9/11 thing. A couple other things that were kind of fun. But the big thing was we had a party then again that night at Southwest. We went over to their headquarters, got to check out their operations center, which is actually kind of different than ours, much different. Feels like a dark blue room, and just the lighting is funky. And
I've seen pictures.
Yeah, it's different. It's funny just looking at their dress codes. They're all wearing shorts, t-shirts, hats, and all that. They're so much more laid back than some of the others. So I found that kind of cool. And then they had open bar. They had a band there where we all able to go out on their deck and have a party, and it was fun. So
for my colleagues there, I think it was, first of all, I think it's important to go and see other airlines operations, even though if you work in that environment, in that office for one airline, going and see another airline setup is cool. It's helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, you get little takeaways, little nuggets. You can see how they're set up. It might be cool. It might be weird. You might look at them and go, "You guys are that shit crazy."
Yeah.
Why do you guys do it this way? I mean, it works for you, but I would do it that way.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I'd like to check out American and Delta's one day. That's down the road.
It's like one of my coworkers that went and said, "Yeah, you had to go before you started drinking." they won't let you go on their tour with a beer. It's kind of worthless.
That's one thing they said is, okay, if you're gonna go to the NOC, you cannot have alcohol. After you check out their center, then you can go party. But
yeah, but that seems like a good party that Southwest puts up. It's the second time they've done it. I believe it includes round trip transportation on the shuttle bus from the hotel.
Yeah, it was. It was perfect. Hop right on. You're there, back. The hotel was nice. I can't complain. So definitely going to go again next year. I don't know where it's at. Rumors are it might be in Chicago, but no one's actually confirmed nor denied.
I think ADF has gone away from a lot of years it was just in Vegas, and they did it in Vegas, and I think they've gotten to the point now where it rotates between Dallas, Chicago, and Atlanta, where it kind of circles the four really, because you have American and Southwest, they're both based there in Dallas. Yeah. So, but no, it's on my list. If I'm off for next year, if I can snag off somehow, I'd love to go to ADF, or if I can find a way for the union to cover my shifts so I don't have to burn a day of vacation and go to the ADF conference. That'd be even
there you go. Get your days off now. Hint, hint.
All right, so that's gonna wrap up. Anything else you want to talk about from ADF?
No, I mean those were the key highlights. That was pretty much it. All the good stuff. So.
Alrighty, let's go ahead and move on to the life part.
Good.
So let's start with you. You shared some big news. You guys just bid for next year, or is that what's going on? Or no?
So we don't bid every year. Basically, you bid a line, you hold it until someone bumps you off of it. That's basically how it works. I'm on relief, basically meaning they can change my schedule 7 days out. They can do whatever they want. Any shift I want, or any shift they could change within 7 days. But there was with the union, we agreed back in March. There was an agreement with the union and the company that they were going to train relief people on international, because we always have these international shifts open and nobody's can backfill them, or at least the relief people can't backfill them because we're not qualified in international. So we were able to bid out, per the agreement, they didn't have to go based off of dispatch seniority. They go based off of relief seniority. So because I was on relief, I was able to score. They posted last week. They said they were looking for 5 people that wanted to for Atlantic training to do the European stuff. So I just said, okay, I'm pretty senior on the relief pool. So I put in for it, and today I got an email saying, congratulations, you've been awarded a relief Atlantic qualification, and start training in November for it. So go through the whole ETOPS, and I think that's 3 days of training, and then I go through 5 days of region training, and then on the desk, and probably got to do a route call or whatever. But yeah, I'm excited to get to start doing that.
Oh, you have to do a route call. Oh, shame on you.
I do.
You have to go to Europe when the company's done.
Europe. Yeah. Well, it's funny because I shouldn't say I'm dreading, but next week I have to do my annual route qualification, and I'm just going to Boston and back. And it's like, I want to go somewhere more exciting.
Yeah.
So, this will definitely be more exciting. I can go to like Munich. If I can time it right, get it like in my international qual in September, October.
Munich in September.
Oktoberfest.
Time to go there.
So that's the beauty of it. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
It's cool. It's definitely different that you guys, like, we bid every year, every April, every January bid, and we bid April to April, and you literally start toss the salad all over again and see where we lie. But you guys hold desks for lifetime.
You bid a line, and you are on that line unless the company decides to rebid the office, which has never happened, or they eliminate that desk for whatever reason. Then you can bump somebody off their shift, so it can be like a bump bid type thing.
Wow.
Or if somebody retires and a line opens up, then you can pref bid. So basically, you can
pref bid, and if you fill up, someone's like, "Oh, I want his line,"
right,
and then that opens a line, and that opens a line,
right. So it's a domino effect type thing. But basically, if you're a senior person, you bid a desk, and you could be on it for 30 years, and nobody will ever touch you.
You mean there's some poor sap that's stuck on like a New York City desk that they probably absolutely just hate, and they can't do anything about it?
Nope. Unless somebody leaves. But see, also, we don't bid by, you don't bid a region, you bid a shift and RDOs. That's it. So you don't know, what the desk is per se, like it might be an east desk or it might be a west desk, but that can change. You're not bidding a desk based on location.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So, one day they decide, we're going to make desk number 1, for example. We can make that an East Coast desk, but they make it the West desk, or vice versa. So, you bid RVOs, just like I mentioned.
That's crazy. So, like, our desks are year to year, and they're fixed city pairs. So there's literally some dude that had all his flights go in and out of New York City, and dude just hosed in the wintertime, hosed in the summertime. It's just those desks don't go very senior.
Yeah. Yeah.
But and it's like you could bid something, and then you can realize like 2 months into it, oh crap, I should not really bid this desk, and then you'll just have to ride your time until you jump off of it.
Yeah.
But man, that's just lifetime thing. It's kind of scary.
Lifetime. So being on relief, I could be on relief for I don't do midnights. Okay, so my preference is day shift because that's what I am. I'm kind of like a day shift relief guy. So I'm not guaranteed days, but that's what I do me. But if I had to pick a shift other than days, it'd be midnights and then afternoon. Nights right afternoon. So, for the most part, knock on wood, I've been mostly days. And
Wow.
see what happens
Really
next year.
different way of life.
Yeah.
So life-wise for me, I've been lying to my wife since February. Thankfully, that's all off my chest now. We went on a surprise cruise. We surprised her for a cruise with her birthday. I had this all set up since February 28th, and she had no clue about it. And then she had no clue that her parents or aunt and uncle were coming either. So she found out about the cruise. Emily found out about the cruise about 30 days before the cruise. She figured it out. She just asked me point blank, "Are we going on a cruise?" Okay,
How'd you find out? How'd you find out?
Because she's a genius and she puts things together. You can't hide things from my wife. Thankfully, I know this, and I usually don't. And I can't just straight up point up lie to her and be like, "No." And I'm like, "Yep, all right, you figured it out." So there's that.
Nice.
And then it was about 3 days before. 3 days beforehand that she found out that her parents were coming with us, and her aunt and uncle were coming with us. And so it was like this huge family thing. We all booked the cruise on the same day back in February. I hadn't talked to my mother-in-law that much in 10 years, let alone like the last 3 weeks before our cruise. So it was a good time. It was a lot of fun. We went to the Bahamas. Carnival called us 2 days beforehand asking if we wanted to upgrade to a penthouse suite opposed to just the regular suite that we were in. And I said, sure, take my money. So that was a ton of fun. It was
What
big,
ship
huge.
was it? What ship was it on?
It was the Fascination.
Okay. I think
so it was supposed to be the Elation, but because of Irma, they had to take it out of dry dock because it was going through refurbishment. So they had to ship change us, which is a big deal on a cruise compared to a ship change and, an airline. You take one 320 and throw another one at it, no big deal. Big difference on cruises. So it turned out to be a better boat, ish. All the Elation now has all of the same amenities as the Fascination did, but it was good. It was a good cruise, good 4-day cruise, out of Jacksonville down to the Bahamas. Can't really stand the Bahamas, so normally would have stayed on the boat the whole time, but we walked around NASA a little bit because we had some first-time cruisers with us, and then we got a shore excursion to the beach in Freeport because the kids were demanding beach time, and so was my wife. So we went to the beach and they had fun there, and it was right back at home. So it was a good cruise. It was good times. Everyone had fun. And then the other thing is we finally moved the baby out of our bedroom, which took longer than we expected, but we were okay with it. But she tonight is her first night living in her room. It's kind of cool. Once we moved her stuff into there, when she walked in the room, her face just lit up. This little 15-month-old that realized, oh, this is all my stuff. Oh, this is mine. It's kind of the excitement. She started running around her room, yelling and laughing. So it was good times there. So, but other than that, it's gonna pretty much finish off the life segment. It's the only real major updates that we have. Other than that, cruise has been pretty routine here in the household.
Good. The only thing I want to add is I hate teenagers. And I'll leave it at that.
Talk to me about that. So you have how many kids do you have?
So I have 3 kids. I have a 14-year-old, a 13-year-old, and an 11-year-old. So my oldest 14 boy, 13 is a girl. The 2 others are girls. And I'm telling you, the drama with teenagers. My boy is starting to get into girls, which okay, cool. And I can start seeing like where his priorities are shifting a little bit. It used to be all about, oh, Dad, let's go do this, and oh, Dad, let's do that. Now it's oh, well, you know what? My friends, and homecoming's coming up, and I got to do this and I got to do that. And I'm like, fine, whatever. And then the girl who's 13, who's about to turn 14, ready to sell to the cheapest bidder because drama between her and her friends, and I'm just like, tonight I came home and they were crying over this one said this, and I'm like they were only 13. I've got 5, 6, 7 more years of this kind of stuff.
I mean, it doesn't end. I mean, shoot, just because they leave the house doesn't mean you have to stop worrying about them.
Yeah, I know. So
it goes on forever.
I go home, I got to take Advil. I'm like, okay, move on. I got a podcast to do. I'll deal with your trauma later.
Before I deal with your drama, I need a beer.
Exactly. Which is why I'm drinking a beer right now.
Yeah, it's funny.
So that was my exciting evening. I just had to throw that in there.
It's awesome. Yeah. Gotta love it.
It is.
All right, I'm gonna hit this button. All right, so that's pretty much going to wrap up the show. Greg, thanks for coming on. That was great. If you guys like what you heard, this is probably going to be more of what the Flying Life podcast is going to be about. Greg's going to be joining me, hopefully, every episode from here on out. We've decided that we're going to try to publish 2 episodes a month, released to the podcast land on the 15th and the last day of the month. Pretty much, they're pretty much going to coincide with my paychecks. That just happens when we get paid at work is the 15th and last day of the month. So it kind of is a constant reminder to me that I need to do a podcast. So I can't touch my paycheck until I get a podcast out for you guys. It's kind of way to look at it. We're going to bounce off back and forth of who's going to pick the topic in the show planning and things like that between Greg and I. So it'll be good, a little bit of variety of topics, hopefully. Hopefully you guys like this format a little bit better. I know I certainly do. It's a little bit better and easier than me talking to a microphone and looking at myself on the computer and talking to myself for an hour, and hopefully people listen. So, we'll get more discussions like we did about fuel and all that. And honestly, I just might open up our FOM and just flip to a page and see what it is. And, we both work for different airlines. We do things similar, but completely different. And it could spark some good conversations in there with that F word of fuel being the biggest one in the industry. So if you like the show and you like to support us and like to help Greg get a nice microphone in front of his face as well, because that's pretty much what we're going to spend the money on next, to get Greg an ATR microphone. You can find us on Patreon. We have not the last show, but the last normal show, we have a new contributor. Evan Chu is a new contributor. So thank you, Evan, for being a contributor to the podcast and through Patreon. The money doesn't go to our paycheck. We don't get rich off of doing a podcast. It basically covers the web hosting, the media hosting, and equipment, and then doing fun things like going to Sun and Fun and all that, maybe Greg can get off in April and join me in Lakeland, or take more time off next July and join me up in Oshkosh and go around that way. So you can find show notes for this episode at flyinlife.com/2017/28. You can find me on Twitter at flyinlife, Facebook at facebook.com/flyinlife, Instagram flyinlife. Greg, what about you? You online anywhere?
I'm on Facebook. Greg Dubin is my name on there. Even though my Google says Gregory Dubin, I gotta fix that. But yeah, on Facebook, Greg Dubin with 2 G's at the end. And I'm on Twitter as well at WXFan1978. Get me on there when I check it. But I got to get into the technology, man. I'm slowly getting in there. But yeah, that's really the best ways. Yeah.
Cool. All right, you can send us an email, questions, comments, concerns to contact@flyinglife.com. Questions about dispatching, anything, why does an airline do this? Why does an airline do that? Send them to us. We'll answer them. We got two guys from two different airlines here. You get two different answers. But in the end part, it's the same. Hopefully you get to where you're going in a timely manner. Opening and closing music is from bensound.com. The bumper music is from purpleplanet.com. You can also find the podcast on Stitcher. So, Greg, got anything last to say?
All I'm going to say is how we started the show. Go Cubs tomorrow.
Go Cubs.
Let's do it.
Fly the W.
Fly the W. Thanks for having me on again, and it's good talking to you. Do it again.
No problem. Great talking to you too as well. So, until next time, everybody, I need to flip through my mini screens and hit this button. Until next time, everybody, take care. God bless. Stay safe. Go do something fun in aviation. Now I got to flip over this screen, hit this button. Alrighty. Woohoo, we're done.
Ta-da. All right. I made it.
Alrighty, I'm going to see if my wife's still awake.
Yeah, I got to come. She should be on her way home from school, so hopefully at some point.
You're so lucky with that central time zone.
Only 10 o'clock, and I'm off tomorrow, so I'm sleeping in.
Yeah, I can stay up late because I have to go to work tomorrow.
Yeah, well, have fun with that.
All right, man. We'll talk to you later.
All right,
hey,
man,
thanks
later.
for everyone that's still in the chat room.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.